I'll just do. All right. So,
Good morning.
good morning. Good grand risings.
Grand rising.
All right. We got all kinds of different media going. So I think ideally we're like 2 inches from this. Yeah, that's perfect. And then we can see us on there. It's a little blurry, but it's all good. I need to adjust this thing. I think that might be as good as it gets. Okay. So we'll just dive into it. In 3, 2, 1. All right, so welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. I'm here with a dear friend. I consider her very advanced in her spiritual journey. She's visited and lived in many different countries all over the world. She's studied under different teachers in Hong Kong. She's lived in Japan. She's just an amazing human, and I'm really happy to have you on, Marija.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Marija Minic. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. My parents immigrated to Toronto in 1973 from what was then called Yugoslavia. So technically my first language was Serbian because my parents really didn't speak much English by the time I was born. And so that was interesting, having Slavic background, but being born and raised in the western part of the world, in Canada. And yeah, I mean, my first, I guess, spiritual sort of upbringing was through the Serbian Eastern Orthodox Church, and which I still very much appreciate. I like the very pagan nature of a lot of the rituals. Like, for example, we celebrated Christmas on the 7th of January, and, you know, I burning oak branches and saying however many sparks, that's how much love and peace and, you know, money. It was just kind of a different form of manifestation.
Oh, that's beautiful. I didn't know that was part of the religion and the traditions.
Yeah.
I actually was raised Russian Orthodox myself, and I was born in Russia, and I came over when I was 4 years old. So we have
Slavic.
We were neighbors at some point, you know.
Sure.
And
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you started out, and so you had mentioned to me before we started the podcast, 2004 was a big life-changing year, right?
Yeah. So I kind of went to Asia on a whim because it was really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s to go to Japan or Korea or China or Taiwan and teach English. So I signed up for something called the JET program, the Japanese Exchange Teaching Program, and that was amazing. I lived in a very rural part of the country in Niigata Prefecture, which is basically known for its rice, rice and salmon and sake because of the rice. And it was just really eye-opening to be immersed in a country where I look completely different from everyone else. They speak a completely different language because European languages, you know, you can maybe suss out here and there what this and means here and there, right? But Asia is just a different ballgame, you know. And then just experiencing the kindness, and then also a completely different faith. Like, they're Buddhist and Shinto primarily there. And so visiting these Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines and stuff, that was really sort of, you know, oh, this is really fascinating. But I never got
eye-opening, right?
Yeah, exactly. I never got fully into it until I moved to Hong Kong after that. And I was just walking down this one neighborhood one day called Wan Chai, and there's it's called the Kadampa Buddhist temple. It's of Tibetan origin, roots, I guess. And there's a smiling, happy monk on a poster, and it's in English, not in Chinese. It says free meditation classes every Tuesday night.
Oh, wow.
In English, and I was just like, ooh, let's try that out. It's free. Yeah. And oh my goodness, it was just the most mind-blowing experience. And I started going every single Tuesday until basically I left Hong Kong years later.
So with those meditations, what because there's so many different ways to meditate.
Sure.
What can you kind of share the way that they dropped you into the meditations
Sure.
and guided you?
Yeah, he just like the Anapana meditation with focusing on the breath. So he started us by being in a comfortable seated position, and yeah, he had people even in chairs if they preferred, and yeah, just focused on the breath, and then he just kind of used really calm, sweet, soft language, and just bringing us back to our breath. Ever so often during the guided meditation. But the way he structured it was he'd start the class with the guided meditation, and then he would read from scriptures, but made it very relevant to everyday life. And he inserted a lot of humor in his talks, and then he had a question and answer session, which just wanted more clarity. And then he closed it with another group meditation, and that was 2 hours. It would fly by. You're like, oh my gosh, it started at 7:30. Oh, it's already 9:30? Like, when did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, how was it for you? 2 hours is a long time to meditate. How was it for you the first couple of times that you tried it out?
I really, thanks to him, just dropped right in because he was such a skilled teacher. And I mean, obviously, there would be moments where, okay, I gotta shift around. But whatever, I did shift around. But obviously, with more practice, you can sit without shifting around more and more. So.
Did you find yourself having some intrusive thoughts coming in?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, even now, I've been meditating for 20 years. It's like, oh, what am I gonna do for dinner? I'm like, oh. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So how long did you stay with him and practice with him?
I left Hong Kong in November of 2006, so about 2 years. He actually ended up moving to a different temple in Beijing.
Okay.
And being a teacher there, but we kept in touch over email. And I feel like if something really intense happened in my life, I'd share it with him, and he would be able to reframe it in a perspective like, oh yeah, well, this and this is happening. Maybe if you looked at that, and it would just make it better.
So, like give you different perspectives.
Absolutely.
To try to shift it.
Sure. And I appreciate it.
That's beautiful. Are you still in touch with him?
We haven't spoken in a while, but I've definitely I feel like the universe or spirit has directed me to other teachers. Mm-hmm. So he was just kind of like my kindergarten, first grade kind of thing.
Right.
And then it was
the introduction to spirituality.
Yes.
Right.
And then it was fun.
Okay, beautiful. So from that, you found yoga?
Yeah, and so a year later, in 2005, there was a huge expat community in Hong Kong.
So for those that don't know, that stands for expatriate,
yes.
Right?
So foreigners living in a foreign country, right? Mm-hmm. And so because Hong Kong was actually given to the British for 99 years by China from I believe it was 1898 to 1997, because the British Navy was really strong back then, and they kept pirates in the South China Sea. So as a thank you, the Chinese government gave the harbor, it's a harbor in southern China, Hong Kong, to the British for 99 years. They leased it to them.
Wow.
And so it's still very British. It's kind of like this perfect east meets west place. It's really fascinating. I mean, they drive on the left side of the road there, where the rest of China drive on the right.
Oh, wow.
So it's still got that British element to it. So as a result, a lot of British expats and other foreigners are still there. Mm-hmm. A lot of them left when Hong Kong got handed back to China in 1987, but a lot are still there, and the infrastructure is still there to make it very expat friendly. But anyway, so I became friends with this Polish woman and this Norwegian woman, and I just was really drawn to them because they also were spiritual seekers as well. And we went in March of 2005 to India for 7 weeks. Well, Kasia, the Polish girl, she's still there. She married an Indian man.
Oh, wow.
She's still
Wow.
So,
Never left.
yeah, it transformed her life. Her kids are happy, and so yeah, it's awesome. But Anna Marie and I, we ended up at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram, and we studied yoga there, and that was just like, wow, you know, this is like, because prior to that, I was like, oh, it's just an exercise, it's just, you know, glorified stretching, like,
Oh yeah,
but
that's what most of America, I believe, thinks that's what yoga is.
totally, totally, it's an exercise that keeps you fit, you know.
Yeah, and it's become so commercialized where it's like there's these studios just centered around stretching and that aspect of it, but
yeah,
it's so much more than
yeah.
that.
And I realized that in the ashram in India, because you know, we'd be up at before the crack of dawn and meditating and chanting, and it was like, oh my goodness, there's so much more to the practice than just the asana, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was philosophy and jnana yoga, the knowledge aspect of it, and yeah, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is not just an exercise, this is a lifestyle, this is like a way of living. You know?
Yeah, I remember when I first started yoga, I would go like once a week. I was trying out different studios in New Jersey at the time, and one of my buddies was deep in it already, and he told me, he's like, bro, you can't just go once a week.
Yeah.
This is a dedication. You dedicate your life to it, and you commit to it. It's a way of being. Yeah. And it's not only that, it's like it is life.
Yeah,
like everything is yoga, right?
Absolutely.
Like yoga means bringing the darkness to the light, or union.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's there's so much to it, but yeah, let's get back. We'll circle back to that. So you found this amazing ashram. Which part of India was it in?
It was in South India, in Kerala.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And the Shivananda ashram, is it Hindu? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Do they have a specific deity that they were mostly practicing with?
Shiva and Ganesh.
Okay.
So that was an introduction to them as well. And before it was just like, oh, Shiva's just some blue guy in the sky, just whatever, you know. But then you're like, hang on, they see deities completely differently in Eastern, you know, whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism. They see Shiva as the energy of creation destruction, and it just happens to be embodied in this blue-looking strong man, you know. But it's really an energy, not an actual being. And we all have Shiva in us because that energy is pervasive and everywhere. So
yeah, so a lot of people relate Shiva to the masculine energy and Shakti to the feminine energy.
Yes. And just because of the nature of that energy, not necessarily because they're, you know, it's a blue man, right?
Right.
So, yeah, but that was fascinating to me because I'm just like, so it's not just one angry God who recommends you and makes you feel bad and guilty and shame if you don't follow the rules exactly, you know?
Right.
This is an energy within all of us, and we have the power to tap into it. And we have tools to tap into it if we practice. And it's just like, whoa, you mean I can be God too? No way.
That must have been mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And wait, we are God, but maybe we're just like, I like the metaphor of the layers of an onion, you know, because we all have that diamond, pure spiritual center, but we just have to peel the layers through our practice to get to that. And so it's already there. We just gotta tap into it. Yeah,
that's amazing. So what were the practices like? Like what was everyday life like? Like I've lived in an ashram in Costa Rica, and we were getting up at 4:30 in the morning to meditate. Is that kind of how it was for you guys?
Exactly. And then it was chanting, and then it was actually we did karma yoga. So rather than hiring cleaners to keep the ashram clean, everyone participated in sweeping, doing dishes, yeah, just
like
general,
sadhana.
totally. So, but they refer to it as 11 to 12:30 karma yoga.
Karma
So
yoga.
that's
Okay.
what they call it. So,
Okay.
as in selfless service. And it was really awesome to have that schedule. And then, yeah, we'd eat only twice a day. But we didn't need to eat more. Like, it was just perfectly timed that we weren't hungry.
Well, you were rejuvenating your body
Yes.
with meditation and
Yes.
recharging.
Yes.
What most people don't realize, it's meditation can be very energizing.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's kind of like plugging your iPhone into the socket,
Yes.
right? It's like, okay, I'm getting charged up, and then I'm ready for the day or for however long until you sit again, right?
Absolutely. It's really powerful, and yeah, so that's been really amazing. And so, but I noticed looking back in the last 20 years how much I've grown, because when I was a newbie, you're like, oh my god, I'm not doing this right. Oh my god, I'm gonna just bring in bad karma for thinking all these intrusive thoughts or whatever. Like, and also, you know, I expected perfection, and then I'd also get really frustrated, for example, in the yoga practice. Okay, I totally did the bind on that asana, and now I can't. Oh wait, 2 weeks later I can do it again. So it was like one step forward, couple steps back, one step forward, but like now I realize that's just a normal part of the journey. I get so upset with myself if I got the one step, couple steps back, and be like, oh my god, I'm such a failure. Oh my god, I'll never go spiritual.
Well, that's all programming,
Yes.
right? It's like all that deep programming where it's so deep in society, right? Where it's like, okay, we have to do it exactly perfect. But what most people don't realize is the most successful people in the world have a ton of failures under their belt.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know anybody that's really successful that hasn't had dozens and dozens of failures.
Sure.
And the millionaires that I know, they haven't lost millions, you know? It's people think that, you know, you see the stuff on Instagram, you see the stuff on social media, and people think, oh, they got it such a cruising, you know, they're just cruising through life, but there's so much in the background that people aren't showing and sharing and
yeah, exactly. And also, I think we need to understand that growth is not at all linear.
No.
Because we're expecting to go from like newbie to expert in a straight line, and that's not how it works at all. Like, one day is amazing, one day sucks, one day is so stellar good, one day is just down in the dumps, worst ever. You know, so you just have to accept that it's just not a linear journey, and you can accept that, and it's definitely easier.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I talked about on the last podcast I just recorded is that it's kind of like, you know, you have this drop in vibration, this drop in frequency into like the depths of depression and sadness that everybody that I know in the spiritual journey has experienced to some degree or another, right? And then they call it the dark night of the soul. And then from there you start to, I'll speak from my experience, I had to crawl out of it.
Yeah.
On my own. Like, nobody was there to hold my hand, nobody guided me. I didn't know any spiritual teachers at the time. I just knew that I was in the lowest of the low. Yeah. And I'm like a really outgoing, you know, like optimistic guy. And you know, the spirit brought me to this place. Yes. And I needed to go down there to experience that, right? Like, experience how low it can go so I can experience how high it can go.
Absolutely.
And so after crawling out of that, it's like that's where the graph kind of started for me. And then as I kept evolving and growing as a human, it was like this, right? Like where you'd have little like smaller and smaller dips, but it kept moving up as long as I stayed committed to my practice, stayed committed to being a better man, being a better human, just in general, and whatever that meant to me, right? Like, being better could be different for every human.
Right.
But for me, you know, that was removing those programs, removing those self-limiting beliefs, all those stories that, you know, my mind would tell me, and And so some people, you know, there might be some fear, right,
Yeah.
around going back to that place again, and some people might need to go back to that place
Right.
again. Maybe there's something they need to learn in that space.
Yeah.
You know, and so a lot of us in the spiritual community do what's called shadow work.
Yes.
Right, where we actually intentionally go into those spaces.
Yes.
In order to dig out the crap, right?
Yeah.
Like dig out stuff that is really limiting us.
Yes.
And a lot of times, for me, I didn't even know about a lot of it.
Yeah.
Because it was so pushed down so far.
Right.
A lot of it was blacked out.
Yeah.
You know, I had chunks of my life that I just didn't remember.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I found these different practices, myofascial unwinding, things like that, where I actually like tuned into my body, connected with my body, and was able to go into those places and start to bring it to the surface to look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that all is crucial.
Yes, it really is, because pretending it doesn't exist, it's going to eventually fester, and it's going to be like a wound you don't attend to. It's going to just fester and pus and get infected, and then you have no choice but to deal with it.
Right.
So yeah, the people who spiritually bypass it, by ignoring their shadows and their dark sides, will be forced to deal with it.
Yeah, and usually from you know, seeing my friends and my own experience, it just becomes more difficult and more difficult the more we try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Especially because our bodies are starting to vibrate at a higher frequency the more we do it.
Yeah.
So it just can't, as our bodies start to crystallize, we just can't hold it in our field anymore. It has to be cleared.
Yeah.
And so I know for myself, I just went on this whole journey of finding all these different practices like Reiki, Kundalini Yoga, Theta healing, breath work, working with different plant medicines, all those things combined, and more, integrated energy therapy, things like that, really started to bring all that up and gave me tools to work with it, you know?
Right.
And it's like we have a responsibility as the ones that were awakened, right? To, I mean, that term, that, you know, it leaves a bitter taste in some people's mouth, but I'll just use it for the time being. But for those of us that crawled out of that dark spot, and chose to get out of it, you know, with our everyday choices. For those of us that we're given this level of awareness, it allows for us to have a responsibility for our family lineage,
for sure,
to clear it out and to not continue those programs and patterns anymore, especially, you know, if we have little ones either here or on the way.
Absolutely. And I really feel that there are certain things I can look back in my life that, like, oh my goodness, that was there to redirect me. So after I got back from Hong Kong at the end of 2006, and it was a pretty rough time, because I was in a 3-year relationship with an Australian man, and we broke up, and my contract ended at City University of Hong Kong, and you know, I had nowhere to go but back to my parents' place.
It was like a big one of those moments, right? Like when it rains, it pours, right?
Yeah, and I felt like excuse me, the biggest loser. So it's like, okay, no relationship, no job, nowhere to go, to mom and dad's. Great. I suck. But anyway, I still actually kept up with the practices, even though there are moments where I'm just like, I'm in tears and bawling my eyes out, but okay, fine, okay, fine, do your yoga. Okay.
Because underneath it, you understood how powerful it was, and how important it was for you, right?
For sure. I'm also a field biologist, so without any work and living at my parents' place, I just went crazy with applications. I was just like, you know, I am so ready. I lived abroad. I get a job studying kiwi birds in New Zealand. I am on a one-way flight, you know.
Right.
That's how ready for change it was, right? So it took about a year, but yeah, I applied to well over 100 and some odd places. And it was December of '07 when I got a phone call and she's like, "Hi, this is PodCon in Las Vegas." And I'm just like, Las Vegas. Oops. And I'm like, she's doing me an interview on the spot. And I don't even remember what I applied for. Las Vegas. I'm like, okay, just wing it, Maria. Go for it, you know. And so she's like, yeah, I'm an out-of-state reptile, the desert tortoise, and it's on the endangered species.
Oh, wow.
I see that you have taken a desert ecology class, which I did in my third year of my undergrad. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that was a one semester class years and years ago, but yeah, I know the desert, you know, kind of like, or surely, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, this is such a joke. She'll never hire me. And then 2 days later, she's like, you're hired. You're gonna be on a crew leader position. She gave me a leader position.
Wow.
And I'm just like, how?
And you get to work with tortoises.
Yeah, and so I was like, how did that happen?
What a blessing.
And so next thing you know, well, it was actually initially a 6-month project, right?
Okay.
And so I thought, oh, so I Las Vegas, like the hedonism capital of the world for 6 months. Oh my God, it's so hard. And that was '08, and I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, you know, one thing that I've been tuning into is like, it seems like there are certain people that hold a frequency for a space, right? That, you know, they're pivotal in the community. They're very important to that land. They're very connected to the land. They're grounded into the space. They like magnetize people to the land, to the space, all over the world. Like there's these people that are like living beacons, right?
Yes.
And they hold down a certain frequency in those spaces, and it allows for growth and the mass awakening to happen.
Sure.
And it seems like people are guided and seated in these places all over the planet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, from my experience, it seems like it's like going from middle school to high school, high school to college.
Yes.
When you graduate from that space, then you upgrade to the next thing,
It's
right?
time to move on, yeah.
And for my experience, you know, on the East Coast when I lived out there, Spirit was showing me, okay, you found Reiki, you found integrated energy therapy. The rest of your teachers are on the West Coast, and just go. Like, don't.
We got you. Just trust.
Right. Like that's huge. That's such a huge thing, right? Like just so many people are afraid to take the leap.
Yes.
But in those leaps and bounds is where the most growth happens, because you become that beacon sometimes, and then all your teachers appear in the exact moment when they need to, you know.
And same with angels too, because like I just got back from a couple of months. I'd gone to Japan for the first time since I left.
Oh wow.
Back in October, and then I went to Taiwan and Korea. And you know, I'd be lost, like, oh my gosh, this Google Maps is wrong. Like, how am I supposed to find this place? Boom, someone's like, doesn't speak English. Turns on Google Translate. May I help you? Chinese to English, you know. And I'm like, I'm looking for Google Maps. Oh, come with me. And I'm like, this just random person came out of nowhere to help me. Like, doesn't speak English, but we got through on Google Translate. And like, where'd you come from? Like, oh, thanks, Spirit. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I feel protected anywhere I go in the world. Like,
and there's so much liberation in that.
Yes.
There's so much liberation in that. And there's so much fear around travel, around going to countries. Like, even for myself, like, it's hard for me to imagine going to Japan, even though I really want to. I resonate with the culture and the people so much.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. You would love it.
I know. I was watching all your stories on Instagram, and it like, it's so inspiring for me, because Maria would post every day, and she would share all her temples and journeys. It was so beautiful.
I feel like it's also, I would even say it's safer than here because people don't lock their bikes. People like you can leave a wallet, go eat in a restaurant, leave your wallet sitting there, go to the bathroom, come back, you can still be there. I don't even look at it. Like
It's hard to imagine.
yeah,
It's hard to imagine in the US.
I know because now I became complacent over the last 2 months. I'm like, wait, you know,
Right.
back in America, you gotta figure all that away.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, I mean, you know, my thing is like, if I go to Japan, my story in my head is like, how am I going to get around? How am I going to understand the language? I know there's the translators, but there's this worry, right? Of like, oh, okay, like if I'm in the middle of nowhere, nobody speaks, my phone dies, what am I going to do? But I know it's just those moments are like reminders of like just lean in and go for it. You'll be you'll be supported. Yeah. And I've done it before. You know, I've gone to many countries, like several countries that I didn't know the language or very little of it.
Yeah.
And I was very guided, and Spirit always, I can't say always, but from my experience, Spirit is, you can always tap into your angels and guides.
Absolutely.
And always ask for guidance.
Yeah, even my first time around in Japan when I lived there in my early 20s, I'll never forget, like the flight I was taking out of there to leave Japan for good. I ended up injuring my knee and I got to the airport too late and missed my flight. And yeah, back then it wasn't like, I think airlines are a little more understanding now. They'll put you on another flight or whatever. This one was like, sorry, you lost it. You got to buy a new one, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I'm just like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, where am I going to stay? What am I going to do? The two late women who worked at the airline counter, like, basically said, you stay at our place tonight.
Oh,
we got
wow.
you. Yeah. And they totally, they spoke English because they deal with international travelers, but I'll never forget them. And it's just like, they made dinner and we had fun. It was sweet. And it just was like, okay, what was I worried about again?
There's a very low chance that would ever happen in America.
I know.
It just shows how welcoming in different cultures can be, you know, and are.
Yeah.
So just to kind of wrap back to India and to circle back and I just have a few questions. So India is known for being like the mecca of spirituality in some aspects. Like everything there is revolved around spirituality. Yeah. Like I have several friends from India. They, you know, the Bhagavad Gita is like built into their cartoons as kids. Like their
meditation's taught in schools.
Yeah, there's a temple on every corner. You know, it's like it's you can go and live in the mountains at like 12 years old if you're called to that journey. You know, it's like everything is revolved around spirituality in a big way. And so my question is, did you ever encounter any enlightened beings or any people that were just like vibrating in that really high place?
Well, I'll never forget, we did, so when we lost Kasia, the Polish woman, she ended up just like, no, I'm going to stay in the yoga ashram. We're like, okay, cool. And so, and then she ended up staying in India and living there for 20 years. But anyway, Anna Marie and I signed up for the 10-day Vipassana in a town called Hyderabad.
What is the Vipassana for those that don't?
Oh yeah, it's a type of meditation where you're focusing on your sensations and just the whole idea is to understand the concept of impermanence because, ooh, I have a little itch on my elbow. Oh, it's gone. Mm-hmm. Oh, I have a little twitch in my shoulder. Oh, it's gone. So when you observe all the sensations in your body, you realize nothing's permanent.
Without addressing it.
Yes.
Physically.
It's just you observing without judgment. And so that's the idea of Vipassana, being an observer in your meditation practice. So, but it was intense because they took away your reading materials, your writing materials, your phones, everything. It was all about going, and you had to be in silence.
Right, that's a big part of it.
And you couldn't even engage in body language or gestures or anything.
No eye contact.
Nothing. So it was completely going 100% inwards as best you could, you know. And we were all assigned a teacher that we could actually, if we had any concerns, like, you know, say you're cold at night or, you don't feel you know, maybe you need some food, you have some food allergy sensitivity or something. So any concerns, like physical concerns, you could talk to a teacher about that. You have a little 15-minute window every day. And because India is a country with many languages, the local language was Telugu, and then the national language that everyone understands each other with is Hindi, and then English, because they too were colonized by the British. So most Indian people are very good at speaking English. So I obviously chose the teacher in English. And yeah, I remember it wasn't even so much physical concern. It was like after day 3 or day 4, I was just like ready to quit. It was so hard. Like I never meditated that much since 4:30 a.m. for hours and hours every day. And it was just like, I remember crying to her. I was just like, you're making us run marathons when we can't even jog, yeah. Because I'm only a year into my meditation practice at that point.
Right.
And so I remember like, she just had this look of complete, like the enlightened being. And she just looked me straight in the eye. And she established eye contact with me and smiled. And then just in the sweetest voice with her accent, just keep at it. You just keep at it. That's all you're doing.
I love that.
No problem. You know? And so I was just like, yeah, I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be like this amazing meditator. Like, I just do my best and that's it.
Right.
Nothing else matters. And it's just like, oh wow, she made that whole like crisis so simple, you know?
4 words.
Yeah.
Just keep at it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, you are a very wise woman. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just, I feel like some of the most, the highest beings just keep things as simple as possible. Where we're expecting them to be some sort of deep and meaningful and like full of like concepts that we'll never understand. No, they just keep it simple. I feel, yeah.
So besides her, in all your travels and all the places you've lived, was there any other people that really were known and people would go to their teachings or to their ashrams?
Yes. I mean, a lot of them are deceased now. Like in a town called Pune, just outside of Mumbai, there was a BKS Iyengar who came up with Iyengar Yoga. Yeah, everyone just flocked to here.
So you got to meet him?
I did not, but I went to Pune, and he was still alive back then. So his ashram was still available to visit, but he wasn't there that day. But I just noticed how everyone just flocked there. And then in Mysore, Sri Joyce was still alive back then. Actually, his grandson Shiraz just passed away like in October, I think. Yeah, so we very recently had. But anyway, so yeah, everyone flocked to Mysore for the Ashtanga ashram. Yeah, so a lot of the teachers who are now deceased, their ashrams are still alive and people flock to them. Yeah, like Sri Rama Mahashri and yeah.
Maharishi?
Yeah, Maharishi, sorry. Yeah, he attracted tons of people still to this day.
Huge.
Yeah, I oh yeah, there it is. In my wallet. I did a 3-day Sri silent meditation in Mexico.
Oh wow.
In 2020. Yeah, that was really powerful too. But I feel like nowadays we're so full of distractions that a 10-day retreat almost seems impossible to most people.
And was that how long your Vipassana was?
Yeah. Like I said, there was that, crying to the teacher moment. But then also, I found out later, I'll never forget, it was like maybe day 7 or so. My Norwegian friend, Marija, she was like flailing her arms at me. I'm like, goodness sake, I've kept this up for 10 days. Stop distracting me. Like, no body language, please. Like, what are you doing, woman? And when we were allowed to talk after 10 days, she said, I wasn't trying to distract you or anything. She said, there was a snake that literally slithered right in front of you and you were this close to stepping on it. And so I didn't know how else to do about that.
Jeez.
So
you were so vibed out that it didn't affect you at all.
Didn't even notice. Yeah.
Wow.
And she just said like, I was just like, oh my gosh, just keep your head. And she's like this close to this Don't be one snake.
And there's a few poisonous snakes in India.
Oh yeah, like king cobras and such, you know. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was crazy. That she wasn't trying to like ruin my experience. She's genuinely concerned for my well-being.
Yeah.
But in silence, how do you warn someone?
Yeah, for sure.
So she's just trying different ways to get my attention without breaking the silence.
Yeah, so I think the reason, or I know the reason that I'm asking about the enlightened teachers is because, you know, in the Piscean age, which we just exited out of, the guru, regardless of whether it's in India, Japan, whatever country it's in, in the Piscean age, it was known that you had to be in the presence of an enlightened being in order to receive an activation, in order for that being to become enlightened.
Right.
And a lot of these gurus, like Maharishi, you know, they would transmit without words or language to their students this knowing and this vibration, and just being in their presence.
Their darshan, yeah.
Their darshan, yeah. These students would feel something, and for some of them, it led to an enlightenment. And so, you know, now that we're in the Aquarian age, it's a little bit different. You know,
yeah, I feel like everyone's our teacher.
Yeah.
And like with my environmental work, I'm a member of the Sierra Club, and we had our holiday party on Friday night, and there was so much leftover food, and you know, they're like, hey, I don't want to take this home, and they were getting to the point where no one was taking everything home, and I'm like, you know what? We're right here downtown. There's tons of people camped out. I'll take it all. And so I swung by and fed these hungry people. And I feel like they're our teachers. They're at this moment in time in their situation to teach people compassion.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's just one of the lessons, you know.
Exactly. I'm just using that as an example. But like, you know, why shouldn't a houseless person on the street be a teacher? Why does it have to be some enlightened being in an ashram in India? No, it's this guy on the street. He's teaching people compassion.
Well, yeah, I had a whole new perspective on that actually in the last couple of months, where I believe that, you know, I believe in reincarnation. I think that was a key component, a key piece of the puzzle for me when I had my awakening, right?
Yeah.
And you know, if somebody is a really advanced soul, they're gonna go through these experiences like releasing all their attachments to material possessions. And
that's like Buddha.
yeah. I mean, so many, you know,
examples.
So many teachers.
Yeah.
That's a big aspect, right? Like releasing from the material plane.
Yeah. Just
knowing that you're fine and supported and guided with just one shirt, one pair of pants, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, I've had friends, and I still do have friends that are houseless, right? And the experiences they share with me is really next level sometimes, you know? And for those people, some of them, I believe, are really advanced souls that are going through this initiation by not having any material possessions in order to reach some sort of activation or understanding, where they can rebuild from nothing, you know, and like, or just like have so much trust in the universe, like to bring them back to Creator, that like they're always guided, they're always, you know, supported in whatever ways that looks like.
Sure.
And then there's the part where, you know, people are avoiding that shadow work we were talking about, and so they're numbing out with these really intense drugs, you know, and then that puts them into this really toxic cycle of needing that drug in order to function. And you know, that's why I'm so passionate about the shadow work. And you know, I run a men's circle every 2 weeks here in Vegas.
Love it. That's so awesome.
Thank you, and I know you're part of the women's circle with my partner,
Yes.
Noella, and it's
Sweat lodge tonight.
yeah, the women's sweat lodge tonight, but it's like um, it's so important. It's so important to go into those shadows and to clear that out because it even on those really intense drugs, what I believe partially may be happening for some of these people is they're going into these other dimensions, these other states of being on the drugs where they are learning different things and having to face themselves.
Yeah.
And in those spaces, they have an opportunity to shift and there's just sometimes needs to be awareness that there's a choice.
Yes. I have a really good example of that. Someone else who was temporarily a teacher, in 2011, my friend Rob, he's friends with a lot of the Havasupai elders in the Havasupai Nation, which is one section of the Grand Canyon that is run by the Havasupai Nation, right? And it's
in Arizona.
Yeah, and it's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. I highly recommend everyone goes there. It's an 8-mile hike into the canyon, and then you get to the village, and then there's just bright crystal blue waters and waterfalls, and it's just a great place to spend.
And it looks like something out of Central or South America. It's so trippy.
It is beautiful, right? So we went there because there's normally a tour season when you get permits for doing this, right? But because Rob was friends with these tribal elders, we got to go without the permits and outside of tour season. So it was like, I would say it was February 2011. Wow. But there was a little bit of conflict because we did the 8 mile, it's starting to get dark, so we were just looking for a place to set up camp. And one of the elders who actually invited us, his name was Fidel. And Fidel, well, first of all, as we entered the village, the village were greeted with such hostility, like, like, what are you non-indigenous fucks doing here? Like, how's you guys clothes? Can't you see the sign? You know, and Bob's like, actually, we're going to be guests of Fidel's. And he's like, doesn't matter, how does you guys clothes, right? So we actually went to Fidel's house, and there was a conflict because Fidel's wife got ill, and the closest medical facility is Kingman, Arizona, the hospital there. And because they're deep in a canyon, the only way to get there is by helicopter, right? So because he was so preoccupied with his wife getting sick and taking her to Kingman, he forgot to tell the tribe who were going. So yeah, that was an issue. So luckily, Fidel's daughters were quite helpful, and they're like, let's stay out here. And so Rob was listing off other elders he knew, and a guy named Roland came, and he said, you guys can camp out on my property for the night, we'll deal with this in the morning, right? He wakes us up at like 6 a.m. and just says, good news, bad news. Bad news, most of the tribe is not cool with you being here. Good news, I could probably convince them if you're willing to, because one of the issues with canyons is flash flooding. And when a flash flood rolls through, it just destroys everything in its path. So they had a flash flood not too long earlier than that. And so a lot of their wooden footbridges and stuff had completely been destroyed. So he said, you're willing to like get your hands dirty and help around the village and pick up all this flash flood debris, I'm sure the tribe would be looking but if there were. So with all that debris we picked up, he did a sweat lodge for us, and that was my very first sweat lodge.
Oh wow.
You know, found by this indigenous elder. And
that's such a powerful place to do it.
Oh my goodness. And so he conducted the ceremony in both Supai language and in English. And he was like, alcohol is unfortunately an issue in a lot of indigenous communities. And I remember he broke down and he was like, Great Spirit, alcohol is killing my people, please. And then he told us his story, which is getting back to what you were saying about he said he had the worst problem with alcohol. He said, I downed a bottle of whiskey and I don't even remember what happened. I just woke up in a puddle of my own vomit. And I was like, oh my God. And that was his huge awakening, catalyst for awakening, getting to the worst, deep, darkest, muddiest, grossest hole you could imagine. And being like, what were my ancestors thinking of me? Like soaking in my own puke. Like, no way. And he said that was the last drink he ever had. And then he became this elder shaman in the community conducting spirit lodges, you know.
Wow.
And yeah, but he had to go there. He had to go to that gross, deep, dark pit of hell to get to where he is now, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just, it seems like that's one of the paths for some people.
Sure.
You know, I'm fascinated to learn what sparks that awakening for different people.
Yeah.
Because and I'm also fascinated when it's somebody that if I saw on the street, I would never imagine that person went through that, or that the way that they look physically or whatever, like I would have never imagined.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of it, is like now on Earth, there's every race, every color, every age that's awakening and awake.
Yeah.
And so they're there to be the leaders and the way showers.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful because, you know, I've met people that every walk of life, every type of journey, from what we were talking about, from these heavy drugs leading to an awakening to a really hard breakup, to
losing everything.
To losing their job, to losing their career that they were so attached to, that they got so high up in their job or in their professional
or had a
athletic career
accident, like injury,
like car accidents. Also psychedelic journeys, like really deep psychedelic journeys. For a lot of people, that's the spark. And it's fascinating to me how the soul kind of has a bit of a blueprint. You know, it's like we have some freedom of choice, I believe. You know, we can choose certain things, but then we have a guidebook, a guideline to kind of like, it's almost like a river flowing into the ocean, right? Like we're all going to get back to the ocean, we're all going to die, we're all going to leave this body. But our all of our rivers kind of flow a little different. And we have choice. Like some parts of the river is going to flow a little, slower. Some parts are a little faster. Some you're going to be able to get off on the banks and camp and
chill,
and get some chill and get some rest. Other parts you're going to have to
navigate really crazy waters.
You can go over some waterfalls. So to me, it's like all of it is okay. And it took me a long time to get to that place where, none of it, everything passes. The too shall pass, right? Like getting too attached to that joy and that like beauty and the amazing food and the amazing cars and whatever else, right? Like we can enjoy that, but then that too shall pass. Like that car is gonna break down or somebody's gonna scratch it or whatever at some point, right? The food's gonna be eaten, the house is gonna crumble, eventually. So nothing is permanent. And it's all the thing I've learned is like it doesn't have to be so big of a deal when there's a down.
Right, exactly. And that's part of growth, because at the beginning of the journey, I was just like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. It was going so good before, now it's terrible. But like, you just have to realize that like you said, it's not terrible, it will pass, and don't get attached.
Because even the worst, because that's the whole beauty of going into that darkest place, right? Like if you go to that darkest place and you crawl yourself out of it, which is I believe the only way out is pulling yourself up, pulling your pants back up, getting out of that puddle, of tears sometimes, and just crawling out. Because if you've gone to that place, then all these little challenges are so much more manageable.
Totally.
And then we do these practices every day, right? In order to challenge and stress our bodies sometimes. In order to go into these places of stillness, so that when our nervous system is activated, and there is this challenge,
Yeah.
then bam, we're able to navigate and manage it so much easier because our body's used to being stressed and then relaxed, stressed and then relaxed.
Exactly.
You know, Kundalini yoga was a really big one for me with that.
Sure.
Like really, really going for it, like just hitting these postures where you're holding it, your arms up for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that long, but
yeah, when the lactic acid kicks in, you're like, ah.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is.
And you know, it's funny because the most fit people, like the bodybuilders that I know, have the hardest time with it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not about the muscle strength.
Yeah.
It's about the mental strength.
Absolutely.
And the ability to find that center and to stay in that place, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And it's you also realize that actually mental strength is ultimately what matters, because with that strong will and strong willpower, you can push through anything.
Yeah, because the muscles can deteriorate, you can get injured,
Totally.
you know, like I've seen it happen so many times to my friends. I had a lot of bodybuilder friends in the East Coast, and you know, they'd get injured and they couldn't work out, and it was so deflating for them.
Oh yeah.
Because they had such a big identity with their body.
Yeah.
And like if their body wasn't perfect, they felt like they wouldn't get, you know, any love and attention from women or from their friends and family. Like it was a big
It's so sad. It's really sad but that's their journey, and then they have to go through the dark when that happens, and then hopefully come out of it.
Yeah.
More evolved.
Yeah, and you know, it's so interesting to me to see the way that all different people awaken.
Yeah.
So have you gone to any other ashrams, any other spiritual teachers since then?
Yeah, well, I have one here in Vegas. I have a few here, but the one for meditation anyway, yoga is a different story. But his name's Master Chaya. He is the head monk at Chaya Meditation Monastery over in Rainbow Springs. It's a Thai Buddhist temple.
Oh, beautiful.
He's Burmese though, and so it serves the Thai and Burmese community. I've also seen some Sri Lankans there because there are a lot of Buddhists. But he has Burma's been at war since 60s, maybe even since World War II. I have to check that again. But
who are they at war with?
Civil. It's from within. Because they got military junta in power, and then they have various different ethnicities, especially in the north. And so it's and then they have the Rohingya people, the Muslims in the south, that they're trying to make go away to.
So it's like a religious thing.
Bangladesh, yeah. But anyway, so he escaped Burma when he was a young monk and served in Thailand, and so he's fluent in both languages and in English as well. But I started going there because I was like, oh, they offer meditation 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Actually 4 to 5, but I thought I don't think 4 to 5. But if you're staying there, you can do 4 to 5, but 4 a.m. to 5 a.m.
And they do Vipassanas too?
He's mostly a Vipassana teacher, but it's just a period of complete silence where they ding a bell every 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's completely open to the public. Enjoy it. Every 9 a.m. every single day, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., and then 5 to 6. So you can come anytime. So I started going in 2017, and he also is just an amazing teacher. I remember once someone that I lent $800 to completely betrayed me, and I was really upset because I helped her, and so I just felt really betrayed by her. And he just put it completely in perspective to me, and he said, well, you know, maybe it's a karmic debt you owe, and just be happy you're not in the red. We're in black, so I'm like, hey, not so bad. Eventually, it's funny because over a year later, she did take me back, but it was just, I let it go because of his wise teachings, you know. And so, I enjoy going there. There's an Indian couple named Marija and Baba. They live in Anthem, and they host.
Is that California?
No, just over here, Anthem, Vegas, the very, very southernmost part of Henderson.
Oh, okay.
And Marija and Baba are very, 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 very devout devotees. And they host New Year's Day, actually. If you're not doing anything, they do a really amazing New Year's Day celebration with chanting and yagna fire and stuff. And then on in March for Shivaratri, they do a really elaborate Shiva, 24 hours chanting to Shiva and pouring the milk with the ghee and the cream and honey concoction over the Shiva statue. And then everyone takes some of that blessed concoction thing. Yeah, they do that. And then in April, they do Hanuman Patri, like where they chant Hanuman Chalisa 108 times.
Right.
That usually starts at 9 a.m. and finishes about 4 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
And then in September, they do 24 hours of Gayatri Mantra chanting. So at least one person must be chanting. Others can sleep, take turns, whatever. But yeah, they host all those events at their place, and they're just amazing people. Like literally anyone's welcome, even if you're just off the street. Like, and they have tons of food that they share with everyone, and it's all about the practice, and they're welcome. So yeah, they're amazing people, and I feel like they're higher level beings as well. But they're just like happy going like, no, I know, Marija, oh, have some food, you know, like just normal everyday people, but they just are very devout and are very dedicated to their practice, and it's so inspiring, you know.
Yeah.
And then recently, right before I left Asia, I found out that you can actually the temple stays are a thing there, because it really got going when Korea hosted the '88 Olympics, but they also hosted the 2002 World Cup for soccer or football, and they were okay with the '88 Olympics, but in the World Cup they were short of accommodations for all these players and their fans from all over the world. So the Buddhist temples were like, okay, well, we got space, you guys can stay here. So all these people started staying in Buddhist temples, and now it's a thing. Like, but you know, in order to stay there, you need to be a participant in the community and like get up at 4:30, all that, right? So I did that. My friend
in South Korea.
Yeah, my friend Hyoju helped me with this. She was like, okay, well, here's the website. So first we had to find the dates that work for me. And then when we did that, we narrowed it down to the marks of like, which one do I choose, you know? And then I was just drawn to this one called Malgoksa. Malgoksa was built in 640 AD, so it's 1,500 years old.
Wow.
And 1,400 years, sorry. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And
what does that mean?
So it's recognized by the UN as being one of the world's cultural treasures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they award different places all over the world. Like just they get extra protection so that, you know, nobody can destroy it or nobody, you know, got the UN protection.
Right. It's like a historical landmark.
Exactly. Like a world treasure. It's for the precious to the world, not just to Korea.
Wow.
And so, yeah, as soon as I walked on, it was 2 hours away from Seoul, and it was extra challenging because I probably out of the 3 places I went to, I know Korean the least, you know, and yeah, so 2 hours of the Seoul, there's like no foreigners at all, right? And so I knew I had to take one bus from Seoul, which my friend helped me get on. But then once I take the other one, I was just like clueless because I'm like, which stop is it? Where do we go? And again, a magical angel helped me. She's just a woman walking her dog, and she sees I'm confused. She asks me in Korean, blah blah blah. I'm like, I have no idea. And I pull out my Google Translate and said, I'm going to stay in Malgoksa. Like, I struck a nerve with her. She's like, oh my God, you're going to stay in our precious temple? Like, and she spent like the next half hour with me to make sure that I got that.
Wow.
I know, she was like, okay, we went to one stop, and then she goes, oh, no, it's that side of the road. Yeah. And then it was just so sweet. And so the next one wasn't coming for like another 20 some odd minutes. And it was really cold there because it already started to snow in Korea. And so she ends up talking to like a cafe owner, like this really older couple, right next to the stop. And she's like, you can stay. And then she shows me, like, you can stay here. And I'm like, okay, so the only problem was with these small little mom and pop cafes, you need cash. And I only had a card with me at that point. So I'm just like, I feel really bad sitting. So I explained to her, I'm like, I have no Korean won on me. I only have a card. And, you know, they don't accept cards, right? the older man, like, got 3 corn on the cobs, and he's like, here, and I'm like, I hand the card to pay, and he's like, no, it's free. And I'm like, yeah, so they gave me free snacks while I waited, and again, taking care of,
So how long did you stay at the temple?
Just a couple of days, and but it was magic. As soon as I got off the bus, it was about a 10-minute walk to the temple, and it was just like this mystical. It's in the mountains, and like it's led up there by this creek and rice fields and everything. It was just so beautiful, and you could feel like this ancient sort of energy to it, that it had been around like so long, and then you're greeted by the person they're expecting you. You sign up for it, and she was the only one who spoke English, and she's like, "This is your room," and the room was just so sweet. It was just this. It had a heated floor.
Wow.
It had my own bathroom, and it was just a mattress on the floor. It was so simple, but it was just perfect, what I needed, So comfy, so cozy. And then I made friends. I was the only foreigner, and I made friends with this group of 3 women from Seoul. There was his mother, her daughter, and the mother's friend. The mother and the mother's friend didn't speak English, but the daughter did. And the daughter may be coming to Las Vegas.
Wow.
like,
yeah.
So it's so cool how everything just worked out. But yeah, up at 4:30, but it wasn't meditating at 4:30. It was ringing the temple bell.
Okay.
And it was just so powerful and beautiful to think that this bell was like 1,400 years old,
right.
And then it was chanting, and then meditation, and then morning breakfast at 7 a.m. And it's all vegetarian because it's a Buddhist temple, but like the Koreans, I love spicy food, and it was just like a few different kinds of kimchi.
Kimchi, yeah.
Oh my god, it's so good for your gut. Just seaweed soup. It was delicious. And lotus root. Oh my goodness, that was so wonderful. But I found out they made their own kimchi on the premises. So
yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, they put it in earthenware jars, and it's traditionally supposed to be buried underground,
right,
and then pulled up in the springtime. But because the temperatures were so cold, they just left them out there.
Because we still have the mountains.
Exactly. So I just noticed a massive pile of earthenware jars just sitting there. I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna be yummy kimchi in the spring. So yeah.
Yeah, but I see like these kind of places that are so old.
Yeah.
I just feel like they must be supercharged with so many people meditating there for so many years.
Absolutely, and it's really like just oh my goodness, it's so I can't even describe it. It's you just walk in and you feel it, like even I would say even someone not sensitive to that energy would feel it because it's so powerful.
Yeah, I would assume so. So was it easier for you to get into those deeper meditations?
Absolutely, almost effortlessly, you just like drop right in, and there was one right before we checked out. There was a session with the monk, it was kind of like a tea in the chat with the monk. That was what it was called. And this man came from like 4 generations of monks, because when you leave the monastery, you're allowed to marry, and, start family and stuff, but you're allowed to celibacy while you're there. But yeah, his great-grandfather, his grandfather, his father, and him were all monks. Yeah.
4 generations.
Yeah. So that was just like, and he just said what brought him there. And again, he had a dark night of the soul story as well. And
you guys talked about that?
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. And it was just
younger guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, really cool to experience that.
Wow, that's really special. So how many monks do you think were living there at any?
Oh, he said there's 13.
So it's small.
It's pretty
very intimate.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think 2 nuns. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know the elevation? Like how many feet up?
It was approximately 3,000 meters. So I would say like maybe 9,000 or 10,000.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because somebody, I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody had mentioned that above 10,000 feet, you no longer hear and experience the energy of everybody below.
Right.
So
Interesting.
it's like Mount Shasta when you're at the top. It's said it's very quiet, like even in that meditative space, like it's easier to just get into that space. And it's so astral up there.
Blocked out the other lower energies.
Yeah, like kind of cancels it out. I guess.
Cancels it out before.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah. So I know you also climbed up one of the big mountains.
Yeah,
right?
that was really like. So I've learned just from my experiences while traveling, and I've started in like I've been traveling for years, like since I was a kid, thanks to my parents who traveled a lot. But solo travel, in 2019, I was just like, you know what? A lot of the time when I book a round trip ticket, I don't even, it's a pain to go back to the same airport I landed in. Like, it ends up being more convenient to fly out of another airport. So I was just like, just get it one way. And so I've been doing that since 2019, and it's just been much better because I end up somewhere else where I don't plan to be, and it's just more convenient to fly out of there,
Right.
So I didn't even plan to go to Korea. I met Hyoju in Japan, actually, at a music festival. And I just connected with her right away. She's just a really amazing woman. And so
she's the one from Korea.
Yes. And so she lived in the Bay Area for 20 years. So her English is excellent. She's like a computer engineer. She worked for Google, and then she had enough and wanted to go back to Korea. So, but she's really awesome. And the way that happened, the way that one was, I was just kind of like, remember when I was just like, oh, I haven't really got the ticket back yet.
Right.
And so when I was looking into that, there was a Korean Airlines that had a 23-hour layover in Seoul. So I just said to her, I was like, ooh, this one looks good. Yeah, there's a 23-hour layover in Seoul. Would you be free? She's like, girl, you can stay here as long as you want. Like, you're more than welcome. And I was just like, oh. And then I did the math, and I was like, wait a second. It's actually cheaper to fly to Seoul and then separately book another flight back home. So, and so I ended up being there just like shy of a week, you know. So, and it was the really cold weather that was like, okay, it's Kailash to go because I wasn't prepared for that like snowstorm weather. Right. She had to lend me clothes to be warm there, but yeah, so it was.
And she suggested you climb a mountain.
Oh, okay. No, I was just digressing. The mountain was just looking at the map. I was just like, wow, like because I was expecting Taiwan to be this tropical island, which it is, but the interior is all mountains, right? And I was just like, oh wow, that looks really cool. And then there's national parks here, and there's this there, and I'm like, oh, that's worth checking out. And then when I saw, I was like, oh, Yushan, which in Chinese means Jade Mountain. It's wow, it's the tallest peak in Northeast Asia.
How many feet?
13,000 and change.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was just like, how doable is it? Because I didn't even bring like hiking boots or any like proper mountaineering equipment, you know. And I was just like, how doable is it? And I was reading about it, and like, okay, it's intense in terms of length, but not technical. So I was like, okay, well, if I want it bad enough, maybe I can do it in my Van skater shoes. And so everything pointed to me doing it because I just had to find a window of good weather. The weather couldn't have been more perfect. Like it literally rained and even snowed at the top like the day or two before, you know? Yeah. And I arrived in this town called Alishan, right? And it's difficult to get to the mountain hut from there, especially if you arrive there later in the day. But I went to the like tourism information center to ask for advice, and she's like, it's only taxis, it costs a fortune. Boom, 2 Aussie guys show up. They're like, oh, we're not going to go to Yushan, Mike. And they're like, nice. No way, so am I. Oh, well, let's share a taxi then, right? And so I split the costs with them, and we got to the mountain hut. And then we talked to the guy there, and we're like, okay, we want to, a lot of people do it in 2 days, right?
So the mountain hut's at the base.
Right. So we were talking to, and it was so cheap. It was like $12 for the night or something ridiculous, right? But anyway, we were talking to the guy, and we're like, we don't want to do it in 2 days. We want to do it in one full go, right? Because the Aussie guys were on the same.
Like there and back in one day.
Yeah, and he's like, well, you have to start at 3 a.m. Right? Okay, we'll start at 3 a.m. then. And so.
So how many miles was it?
It ended up being like almost 30K, so just around shy of 20.
Around 20 miles.
Yeah.
There and back.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we started at 3 and we finished, I finished at like 4:30. So I actually beat the Aussies to the summit, and but they beat me back because my shoes were like, I was starting to feel every little rock on the way down on my like swimsuit shoes. So
yeah.
So I had to take it a little easier set, but yeah, it would end up being like 13 hours and change.
So is this the tallest mountain you've climbed so far?
No, actually, I've done one in Ecuador that was probably around 18,000, and that was really, really challenging.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just, when you're at that high elevation, there's low levels of oxygen. So, but you adapt, your body adapts,
So on this one, did you start to have a hard time breathing?
No,
No?
Thank goodness. The weather could not have been more perfect. I feel like we're so blessed, and I was just meeting really awesome people along the way. Besides the Aussies, but when I got to the summit, there was a really cool Korean guy, an awesome Japanese guy who was a photographer, and the rest were just these really fun, outgoing Taiwanese guys. And I just felt like I met my tribe of like on the summit, really cool people, and we all shared the joy of reaching the summit together.
Wow.
It was really beautiful.
That's so special. I mean, there's not that many people that go to those lengths, that go in.
I feel like the opportunity was there, so I took it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a gift. Okay, well, you're being given this gift, take it.
Right.
Yeah.
This brings up a thought about astrocartography.
Yeah.
Have you looked into your astrocartography before?
I need to.
So, just for those that don't know what it is, I recently learned about it. Basically, astrocartography is taking your astrology and it gets mapped out on the whole planet. So, with that being said, there are certain lines with different planets that cut through different parts of the planet. So, and each one of the lines represents a different part of your life that can potentially be activated by visiting one of these locations. Yeah, and it's really interesting when you compare it with somebody else, because there are only certain lines that intersect for both parties.
That's why you meet some people at certain times.
Right. So, and also like if you're with a partner or girlfriend, boyfriend, right, or husband, wife, you look at these lines, and where the lines intersect is where you're both going to be happiest living.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so like for me, I have a lot of astrocartography around Australia.
Really?
And like all the little islands around there, and the different ones over there have different activations. And what's interesting is in America, I only have a few select points where like is quote unquote like ideal for me to live, right? And one of them is on the East Coast where I grew up. One of them's in San Diego where I just lived for 8 years.
Wow.
And then one of them's in Vegas.
No way.
Yeah.
And you hit them all.
And so I'm now on my third one in the US. And it's really interesting because my girlfriend also has a line through Vegas. So we both are here. And
meant to be.
Yeah, it's a really interesting
meant to be
synchronicity. So, and I wonder if you looked at your astrocartography, whether you would have, since you've traveled so much, you've probably hit a lot of those points. And if you look back on those points, it'd be interesting for me to see, like, after you visited those places, whether you got those activations.
I will have to look into that. That is something I really need to do. That's fascinating. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept and idea, because I also believe, look, so the planet, I believe, has also 7 energy centers, just like our bodies do.
Yeah.
7 main energy centers. And part of my ideal scenario for this lifetime would be to go to all 7 of them.
Yeah.
And one of them I've already been to, which is Mount Shasta, which we were talking about. And that's considered the root chakra of the planet.
Yeah.
And then the next one, the sacral, is actually in Lake Titicaca, Peru.
Wow.
And so that would be one of the places I'd want to go to. Also, Stonehenge is one of them. Then in Tibet, Mount Kailash.
I've been to all of them.
You've been to those, okay. And another one is the mountain in Australia in the middle of the country.
Oh yeah. I was just talking to the Aussies about that when we were doing
What's the name of the mountain?
It starts with A, Cusco or something like that, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Or are you referring to Uluru, the red one?
I think it might be Uluru. It's
Okay.
like in the middle of the country.
Okay, that could be Uluru. It's a massive sacred rock that
Right.
Aboriginals don't want you climbing, but people ignore that and climbing anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. If I went, I would obviously respect the local people, but it would be beautiful to just sit by it.
Yeah, feel the energy for sure.
Another one. What was the other one? I think on some of them, one of the Hawaiian islands, like Hawaii is one of them, which I've been to.
Yeah.
And I've been to Kauai 3 times, and I feel really connected to that land.
It's one of my favorite islands.
Yeah, it feels really similar to, in some regards, to the Mount Shasta energy, because I learned this from one of the elders in Mount Shasta, who I'm trying to get on the podcast. His name's Peter Mount Shasta.
Wow.
And he basically told me that around the 60s they created this idea of this city inside of Mount Shasta, which is called Telos.
Okay.
And it can be accessible in this reality, but also it is kind of like another dimension.
Sure.
And a lot of people believe that the people of Atlantis and Lemuria, mostly Lemuria, went into Telos and created this city in the mountain there. And Mount Shasta is an interesting place for those that haven't been. There's a lot of missing people signs all over the town.
Yeah.
This time when I went, there wasn't as many for some reason.
Interesting.
But maybe they're trying to keep it, because there used to be, when I went in 2020 or 2021, the first time, they were all over the town.
Sure.
Missing people signs, and
interesting.
Some of that might be related to Telos.
Interesting.
There's also a lot of Bigfoot sightings in that area, so maybe related to that. Also, there's a lot of things that happen that are unexplained over there.
Sure.
Like people will jump into the water, go underwater, and never be seen from again. There's stories like that. They'll jump off the bridge into the lake and never be seen from again. They never find their body. It's like in clear daylight. Everybody sees it. So there's got to be portals there as well.
Sure.
That's the only explanation I can think of with those kind of things. And I know that there are lava tubes that go into the mountain as well that probably people go in. Potentially, maybe they find the city in there, and then they don't want to leave, you know? So there's a lot of, and I'm sure there's many more things, right? But the whole idea of these chakras of the planet is like there's a huge activation of the body happening, even more so than these astrocartography lines, which are like meridian points or acupuncture points on our body, but on the planet for the individual, right? And so just like on your body, if you activate a certain point in acupuncture, that's going to affect one of your organs.
Right.
And it's known that the endocrine organs are related. They are the chakras.
Right.
They are the torus of each chakra. And so that was really interesting to compare the planet, which I believe is alive.
Yeah.
And those meridian centers on the planet and the activations that happen in those spaces.
That makes sense.
And then I think there are like secondary meridians
and
chakras that you can also you know, a lot of these temples and pyramids are
Yeah.
built on, because they're such powerful energy centers.
Sure.
Also churches,
Yeah.
a lot of churches and places like Sedona or
Mhm.
like vortexes
Oh yeah.
for these activations.
Yeah.
And so there's different grid work and light grid work that people do around the planet to anchor in light and love into these places.
Sure.
So I've done a little bit of that work, but
That's fascinating.
yeah, I'm fascinated with that.
Yeah.
I think it's an important part of the planet because we need to anchor in the light, and just by showing up in a place, praying or meditating,
You're amplifying it.
right? You're like grounding your energy into it, and then that energy allows for you to get activated and also the land to get activated, which is part of the planet. So
Yeah.
certain people I think play as like keys to this puzzle, you know.
Brilliant.
So
I'll have to look into that. Now I'm really like wanting to do it.
yeah. So it sounds like you've been to a lot of these chakras of the planet. Were there any of those in particular that were like really, really far out, or like you went there and afterwards just like life opened up in certain aspects, or can you share anything about that?
Well, Kailash. So it was interesting. Kailash was in the year 2000.
Which is the crown chakra,
right? I hadn't even started a spiritual journey, but it sparked curiosity because and actually because of that, I was like, I can do a Yushan Jade Mountain in vans, because I saw these Tibetans who had like cheap Chinese fall apart shoes with like
flip flops almost.
Yeah, like soles flipped, like unstuck,
Uh-huh.
and they were doing 3 days around Kailash because of their devotion to their practice, and it was like, wow, if they can do that, and I can surely do Yushan around here in van, you know.
Oh.
Because I remember that, I was inspired by that, but
yeah.
you could climb Kailash, but you have to be like a hardcore mountaineer, like an Everest level mountaineer, you know.
Yeah, I mean the spiritual
but
monks and stuff don't recommend.
They do it around. They go around. They do. It's called a Kora.
But they don't recommend going to the top, right?
Yeah, you know, that's for people with special mountaineering skills. You know, that's not for the average person. The average person just does 3 days around the mountain.
But from a spiritual perspective, they say it's not good to climb the top.
I think so. I have to remember. I have to look that back up. But I believe you're right.
Because it's such a high energy space that most people's nervous system would have a really hard time handling.
Shiva's birthplace.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah. So that's probably correct. Yeah. But so what we did it in 3 days. You know, did one section, camped, got up, did the next section, camped, and then third section back to the beginning. You know, but a really devoted Buddhist like would do it in one go. Like yeah, even if it takes 30 hours. You know.
So you did that with the monks.
No, I befriended 2 Aussies, a British guy of Indian heritage, 2 Americans, and me. Oh, and a Belgian guy and me. So it was like 8 of us, but we kind of went at our own pace. So there were times we were together, times we were just on our own.
Okay.
Yeah, but we met a lot of Buddhist monks along the way. Wow. And I remember sitting down to like have a snack break, and they really like yak butter tea, which resemble more of a soup than a tea. It's just melted yak butter,
right? And
it's really pungent, you know. So they offered that in their thermoses, you know, and
that's high, you know, fuel for
totally,
yeah,
totally. And yaks are mountain creatures, so you're getting these creatures that are adapted to the high altitude and getting their milk, you know. Make butter tea out of it, and then they eat tsampa, which is made with like barley, and like it's a really dense, you know, and it's kind of they make it involved, and they're just giving that out. And so I was joining them for yak butter tea and tsampa.
Wow.
And we didn't speak each other's languages, but we, you know, shared. The more you travel and hang out with people who don't speak your language, who don't look like you, the more you realize like we're all the same.
Right.
We're really all the same. All this is all exterior fluff.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
It's just a jacket.
Exactly.
They're wearing a yellow jacket or a pink jacket.
Exactly.
purple jacket,
it's, it's just externality.
So one thing that I heard Sadhguru, which is a spiritual teacher in India.
I love him.
Yeah, I listened to his podcast with Joe Rogan recently, and he mentioned that, when you go to these places like Mount Kailash, there's been so many advanced, like super advanced meditators that have just sat there for days and months on end, and they receive these downloads and these insights in those higher realms, and then what they do is they anchor that knowledge into the land. And then when somebody is ready, they will be guided with their intuition to go to that specific land and sit in meditation and receive those downloads that those people seeded into that land. And so that's another fascinating thing for me.
I believe that because, like I said, I was drinking and partying, like, when I went to, like, in that era of my life when I ended up in Mount Kailash, and that literally sparked the curiosity. And then also magic did happen. I'll never forget, there was this raging river at one point in the hike, and I was terrified because I was like, I don't have the skills to cross this river. I'm terrified, right?
Yeah.
And just out of nowhere, so the Sherpa people of Nepal are very mountain people. Like, they're often hired as porters for people who climb Mount Everest.
What's a porter?
People who carry all the gear.
Oh, okay.
They're extra hardy mountain people. Right? So, like, I'm standing on the riverbank. It's rushing. It's freezing cold water, and I'm terrified because I can see it going up to my knees, probably even further. And one wrong step, I could get swept away, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, there's no bridge. You have to cross the river. And so I was just trying to look for the shallowest point. I was just trying to, like, what do I do? All of a sudden, hello, I'm Pachi Sherpa. I can help you. And he takes my backpack, and then he, like, has me grab his arm, and then I just step over thanks to grabbing his arm with these.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, yeah, if you ever come to Nepal, I'm a mountain guide.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Kaji Sherpa.
Another one of those synchronicities,
Where the angels and downhill, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even aware of that back then. It just magically happened. Probably because of
Yeah. I mean, this conversation is really inspiring me to do more travel to these kind of places for sure. So I have a question. So since 2004, you've been on the spiritual journey, right? Yeah. So now that you've had almost 21 years of being on this journey, what is your daily practice look like? What have you found with experimenting with different practices, with different ways to clear your energetic body, to center yourself, to basically take care of your spiritual and energetic hygiene? Like what have you found is most effective for the listeners that may be just starting or want to explore some new practices?
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Ayurvedic medicine, in Ayurveda, there's
from India.
They call the three doshas. Usually you can fit under those categories. There's the Vata dosha, which is like dry and
it's air.
Yeah, an air element. It's dry. People with Vata constitutions tend to be very ADD, very all over the place kind of thing, like go kind of.
Yeah, they're usually also like skinnier and longer people.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you have the Pitta dosha, which is hot-headed,
fire,
prone to rage easily, prone to anger, prone to losing temper, and just.
I got some of that.
But also, I know we all do. But also, like, having the fire to be motivated too, so that, like, there's always good and bad aspects to it. And then there's the Kapha dosha, which is
Kapha, right?
Kapha. You're very like sluggish, tired, and people tend to be overweight or Kapha. But I talked to this Ayurvedic medicine specialist at Bhaktidas, which is the spiritual festival that happens every year in September.
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree, yeah. And she was talking about how when you wake up in the morning, you're already in Kapha dosha, regardless of your regular constitution. She's like, because you're sluggish, you're just waking up, you're going from like sleep state to waking state. And so prior to talking to her, I was always like, pranayama meditation, pranayama breathwork meditation, right? And it was definitely a good practice. But this Ayurvedic specialist says to get out of the kapha, you need to move your body. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'll give that a try. So moving your body first thing in the morning is very helpful. Whether it's a Kriya practice with Kundalini yoga, or whether it's like Qigong, or even an asana practice.
Or it could be just the gym.
Whatever works for you, or going for a walk around your neighborhood, going for a jog, whatever. Anything that floats your boat.
Yeah.
But says, yes, to get out of that kapha state, you need to move your body. And so I've been incorporating that.
So what did she recommend? Is there a certain amount of time?
When I work with what you have, she said if you're on your way to work or whatever, then work with what you have. But give yourself enough time to feel like woken up and ready to go, you know?
Yeah, and it sounds like part of it is getting back into the body, the soul re-entry, right?
And I noticed in Asia, especially in Taiwan, because it's a Chinese thing, but these elderly people were up at the crack of dawn doing Qigong in the park.
Amazing.
And I'm like, no wonder they live so long here. You know, because these like 80 octogenarian, 80-year-old pluses, and they're doing like Tai Chi, Qigong in the park, you know,
right?
And that's their daily practice. You know? So it was inspiring to see that, you know, that this wasn't limited to any age group, you know.
And right now, which type are you doing? Qigong? Are you doing a Kriya? What's
I do a combination of stuff. I like asana, yoga asana. That's really helpful.
Like Vipassana?
Yeah. Or no, asana meaning like poses in yoga, you know, yoga poses.
Is that more like hatha yoga, Vipassana yoga?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did practice Ashtanga at one point, but it takes about an hour and a half to do the entire Ashtanga practice, so it's only when I have more time.
Okay.
That I can do that. But and then I'll sit down for pranayama, breathwork, and I do the four purification, which is the Nadi Shodhana, the alternate nostril breathing, Kapalabhati, the short, short, but Kapalabhati is more chest based, whereas breath fire is more diaphragm based.
Okay.
So, but it's still the same kind of movement, you know. And then I do Agni Sardoti, which is involves breath retention, and you empty the belly, hold the breath on the exhale, and just pump the belly as many times as you can on that held breath, and then I go do that 3 times. And then finish it off with Ashwini Mudra, which is holding the root chakra, and on an inhale.
Like tightening your sex organs and rectum?
Pretty much, yeah. And then on a held inhale, and doing that as many times as you can. On a held inhale, and then 3 times. And so, and then I'll throw in maybe Brahmari, the becoming breath, and some Bastrika as well.
How do you do the second to last one you said?
Oh, the Brahmari? Yeah. It's just, I cover the eyes, cover the nostrils, the cheeks and lips, and then just with your thumbs, hold your ears shut, and you just take a big inhale with a V humming sound. Until you fully inhale, and then you exhale with the same sound. And actually, so in India, Brahmari pranayama is used by singers a lot.
Oh,
it
wow.
helps with the voice and activating them.
And that's all through the nose, right?
Yeah.
In and out through the nose. Oh, wow. Okay, I haven't tried that one.
Yeah, it's powerful. I learned all this when I did yoga teacher training in Mount Madonna, and a wonderful brother in our community, Billy Hogaki, recommended that I go there because he went there. And so the summer of 2013, we road trip there and did yoga teacher training there. But yeah.
And where is that?
That is inland from Santa Cruz. And what makes that area special is that it's sacred to the Chumash people. And then also Baba Hari Das, who started it. He was Ram Dass's yoga teacher. He was one of the few first people from India to teach yoga in the West. So yeah, and you get to camp amongst the redwoods while you're there. It's just a magical place. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then what was the last one then?
Meditation. Yeah. Once I've done the pranayama practice, fall into meditation, and I try to do an hour, but sometimes time. So so I just do the best I can.
And with your meditation, are you just focusing on your breath? Are you
Vipassana. I stick to the Vipassana.
okay? So just being, which is like awareness of your body. Right?
Everything, like, yeah, from even the tiniest little like, ooh, that was a weird glitch. Oh, it's gone. So I feel like the more you practice Vipassana, the more you are aware of the concept.
Okay, and with Vipassana, with that meditation, are you rolling your eyes up and in, or are you focusing on your third eye, or that's not necessary?
It's just go inwards, however comfortable you are, and just really focus on
Okay.
coming and even going. And even Master Chaya, the teacher at the Buddhist temple, like he says, it's just like a flow of river. Like it just, your thoughts, a thought, oh, I thought about dinner. Oh, okay.
Right.
You know, yeah, but just observe how it just comes and goes.
Right.
Rather than get caught up in the monkey mind, as they say.
Yeah, like not attaching to any thought, just
Watching
letting it pass.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought about dinner. Oh, not thinking about it anymore. Oh, okay. Yeah. You don't have to label it. You just...
Yeah, and that's really powerful. Are you also like do you ever get pain like in your joints or your lower back?
Sometimes. Definitely less and less as I practice, but it's not impossible for it to happen. You know, especially if like I've done a long hike or I've exerted myself. You know, sitting is harder because you got the sore muscles or whatever. So, but yeah, I feel like observing helps. You know.
Does it ever fully subside for you?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I one of the last podcasts I did, my friend Igor, he would do like 16-hour meditation days, and he said there's a moment when you just observe the pain where it completely goes away, and then there's like your hip clicks back in automatically, or something happens. And it was really fascinating to me to hear that, because most people don't go for that long period with it. Yeah. And my dad's teacher right now, she's an enlightened woman from Australia, and that's all she wants their students to do is just observe the pain. Yeah. And let it just dissipate and subside.
Wow, that's a challenge to get to that level.
Yeah, it is. I mean, very few people that I know have reached those levels. Sure. So it's a really amazing thing. So, but just the fact that that's possible and people are doing it is amazing to me. I agree. Because there's no way to logically explain that.
Yeah, there's some sadhus in India who've held their hand up for the last 20 years, you know.
Yeah.
It can't even come down.
Yeah, it's atrophy.
Yeah.
It's atrophy up there.
It's frozen, yeah.
Yeah, when I teach Kundalini yoga, that's what I tell my students, is like that exact example. Yeah. Like there are sadhus in India, which sadhus are like the spiritual men that have let go of all their material possessions. They live on the street, and they pray and chant and are completely taken care of. People just give them food and whatever they need. And so, when you're holding your arms up for 3 minutes, and one of those inspirations beforehand to inspire people and connect to that limitlessness, right? Is like to remind them that there are people that are doing it for dozens of years.
I know, and now you can't go back down anymore.
Right. I mean, they probably could put them in the surgical room and clear some of the knots and the muscles, the scar tissue out of there. But yeah, it would take a little bit. But just the fact that they're doing it is really fascinating. Yeah. So I think to wrap it up, what would be really interesting is to come back to yoga, right? And like what from all these years practicing it, like from the experiences you've had, from the teachers you've worked with, like what do you think yoga is for you, and like how can we help people understand what it really is? It's not just the stretching. Right?
Yeah. So when I was really full into Ashtanga yoga, I would practice with Carrie Sobek and Jen Knox, who run the Ashtanga yoga studio here in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one guy who showed up. His name was Alex, and when I talked to him, he's a much younger guy, and like he just was super fascinating. And when I talked to him, he said that his journey was at the gym. He went to a yoga class at the gym at like EOS Fitness,
Mm-hmm.
but the teacher was not just an exercise-based yoga teacher. She was an actual like proper yogi who practiced, but she just happened to take extra hours teaching at the gym, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like if these gyms would also employ people who are proper yogis, not just using yoga as an exercise to, get this flat belly or something like that, then that could kickstart a whole segment of the population onto a spiritual practice, like it did with the lips, right? Because it took. I mean, if he didn't have the teacher, her name was Marissa, but if he didn't have Marissa to happen to teach at the gym, then he would have just continued being a gym bro,
Right.
But just because he met her and she happened to have her own practice,
That's beautiful.
Was his kind of gateway in.
Right.
So, I think we really need to take yoga more seriously than just a simple, treat it as an exercise.
Well, traditionally, right, it is used to prepare the body for meditation.
Right.
Right.
So you can sit for long periods of time.
Right. You're like opening all the meridians. You're aligning all the chakras. Yep. You're allowing for that Kundalini energy, which is an energy wrapped around the sacrum, which is at the base of the spine, to rise up and activate all the chakras.
Exactly.
and open them up. And the movements are aligning the spine, tweaking little muscles, little adjustments, little tendons aligning, so that the body can sit upright for extended periods of time.
Exactly.
And it's really interesting because I know my parents growing up in Soviet Russia, they would do a lot of yoga.
Interesting.
In gym class and things like that. And I don't believe that they incorporated meditation,
right.
But being so close to India and that whole area, Asia,
sure.
There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah,
and so I thought that was really interesting. And I remember as a kid, I would naturally do, like bridges and all these poses that I didn't know what they were.
Right.
But they felt great, and they were
past life.
I was gonna say they were like past life.
You knew already.
Remembrance, right? And that brings up this story for those people that don't believe in past lifetimes. There's this. I mentioned this before in the podcast, but there's this little boy that was born. I think he was like 2 or 3 years old. He was just learning to talk, and you can look this up on YouTube. And he remembered his past life like very clearly.
Wow.
And he said to his parents, he said, I can tell you the exact ship or the exact plane that I was on that got shot down in World War II. I can tell you the platoon that I was in.
Wow.
And I can tell you exactly how I died. And the people that were part of this platoon were still alive.
Wow.
And they had a World War II veterans meeting, and they took him to it, and they confirmed that he was that man,
wow.
just in another body from that platoon. And like they confirmed the plane, all the details, right? Wow. And this kid remembered all of it, and that's the most convincing story that I've found so far, because not only did he remember, but there was people that knew him that could confirm that all the things he said was truth, and
Wow.
there was no way he could have known all that.
Right.
He couldn't have read that in a book. He couldn't
Yeah.
have found it online.
Wow.
He had to have known that, you
Right.
know.
That's amazing.
And that fascinated, like that was to me, to my logical mind, to that monkey mind, that was like, okay,
there's more to it than what we think.
Yeah, and I don't need any more proof than that. Like
Exactly.
that one example is all I need, you know. And I do have a tendency to want that proof.
Yeah.
And it helps my intuition
confirm it.
flow
Yeah.
and navigate when I have that logical backing.
I agree. And another not as impressive but still a pretty cool example was my brother's daughter, her name's Violetta. She's 6 years old now, but when she was 5, she just asked my brother, like, where does meat come from? And my brother was like, well, animals are slaughter. And of course she was really, really, really upset by that. And from that moment on, at age 5, she's like, I want to be a vegetarian, I want to eat. And so how does someone at 5 just decide, sorry, I'm not eating meat anymore? I think something happened in previous lives that led her to that. Because, the child doesn't just randomly choose to not eat meat anymore. And I think, and to this day, it's been well over a year. She's 6 and doesn't touch meat. So only one in her family. I mean, I don't eat meat either, but me and her are the only ones in our immediate family who don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot that you can teach her.
Yeah, I'm the cool aunt already.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. I think there's ways to access those past lifetimes, and there's different practices and different modalities that can get you there. There's something called, for those that don't know, the Akashic Records, which is like all the records from millions of years that we've had as a universe or galaxy, and you can tap into it and see those past lifetimes. But the trippiest part to me, which is still hard to, I kind of trip out on it a little bit, is like time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So all those things are happening right now at the same time. So I've found that because it's all happening at the same time, I am going through experiences in this lifetime that are clearing aspects of those lifetimes.
Right.
So I'm in partnership and relationship with certain people to clear out lifetimes with them in the past. I meet certain people on these different parts of my journey because of different karmic ties that I had. Maybe I helped them out in that lifetime, and now they're repaying the favor, or vice versa. And then it seems like to me that there reaches a point where the karma almost has been cleared. For some people it's late in life, for some people it's earlier if they really tune into it, and then at that point, it seems like the karma, good or bad karma, shouldn't be acquired anymore if the goal is to transcend this reality.
I have read about that. Like when you reach a certain point on your journey toward samadhi or enlightenment, or whatever you call it, karma doesn't affect you anymore.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, I guess, concept for me, because I don't necessarily know anybody personally in that space, at least that I'm aware of. And it would be really interesting to see how that person exists.
Yeah, it would be really fascinating.
I wonder if, these enlightened beings, that's kind of where, like, fully enlightened, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where they're at. They can just be, and they don't really need to do anything. They can just like emit that frequency, help students with their with their field,
Yeah.
and then just go on to whatever's next.
Yeah, exactly.
for them.
And in Buddhism, they call them bodhisattvas when they come back. They choose to come back to Earth to continue teaching. Yeah.
And there's the rainbow body Buddha,
Yeah.
right? And what is that? Can you share a little bit about that?
I'm not 100% familiar, but I believe it's a form of bodhisattva who has foregone enlightenment to come back to the earthly realm.
Okay, so
and be a teacher.
So the rainbow body comes back.
Yes.
I wonder if that's related to the rainbow children that are coming in.
Possibly.
And maybe they have that.
Indigo. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the indigos are like my generation,
Right.
and then I guess there was the crystal
Right.
children, and then there's the rainbow children coming in
Yeah.
now. Those are all just labels.
Yeah.
You know, and different ones have different activations in their DNA and their crystalline structure that is already prepped and primed for their mission, right? And it's fascinating to me to think about that, you know. And for me, I was doing Reiki on trees and animals and people as a kid. I was, like I said, doing yoga and postures as a kid. So there's these different aspects that our soul remembers, right?
Sure.
And all that is really fascinating to me. So yeah, Marija, thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
It really was. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I had a blast, and I hope
What a great
I
conversation.
know the listeners got a lot out of it. So
Thank you.
this was the first one in the studio here in Vegas. So really, really exciting to utilize these microphones and all this.
Yeah.
So
Really
thank you so much for blessing us.
Yeah.
All right, blessings.
What's up now?
Okay.
That was awesome. Wow, cool.
Woo!
I think my phone battery died.
Did it?
Yep.
Yep, it did.
Wow.
Okay, thank you guys. Thanks for joining.